So then we get down to the real questions, right? What does the executive power of the president really mean? And what does he have executive power over? And what are the limitations? Can the judicial branch oppose or stop or halt particular executive power? Do they have the right to do that constitutionally? And because the Congress has power over the purse, they fund the government and they allocate particular funds and how much for different activities within the government, foreign aid, among other things. Can the administration adjust from there?
Article 2 of the Constitution clearly states that the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States. And the person whom we elect to run that executive branch, the U.S. president, must actually once again be the person who actually runs that executive branch of government. That is the final myth that once we debunk it, we have democratic accountability once again, rather than puppets sitting in the White House, as I worry we have today. Instruments of an administrative state.
If you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy.
Hello and welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Trump funding freeze controversy and as the liberal media would state, the constitutional crisis that we're experiencing right now. They don't mention, however, that Obama said very similar things and did very similar things, and that Biden also did very similar things to Trump.
But what I offer tonight is a set of concrete, practical proposals to speed up growth, strengthen the middle class, and build new ladders of opportunity into the middle class. Some require congressional action, and I am eager to work with all of you. But America does not stand still, and neither will I. So wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do.
It's obviously more dramatized right now because of the insane speed in which the Trump administration is moving in. But we heard some comforting things from Trump, I believe, yesterday when he was asked about if he was going to defy the pushback that he's getting from the judiciary branch. And he said, you know, I follow the courts. We're going to have to appeal it. It'll go to the Supreme Court, which that's how it should be. Whether Trump has defied particular actions up until now is up to whoever is going to investigate it. It's not going to be me. But it would not surprise me if Trump has done particular things that are like, well, I don't know. He's moving so fast. But we were going to look at this funding freeze, and more specifically, we're going to look at the roles of particular branches of the government and some of the questions that are being brought up. And I want to do this in a really clear way so that you understand what are the questions, what's the potential issues constitutionally, and what may be the resolution, and just my own thoughts and opinions based on what I've read and researched. You know, one of the things that I think can often get muddy in politics is this sort of breaking of the rules, defying the rules, being kind of the rebel. And that really doesn't work because at the end of the day, if you defy the government that you hold so high and respect so deeply, and that keeps everyone free and is a government for the people, then someone kind of running rogue and being kind of a dictator in the office is just not a good look. And a lot of people have accused Trump of being a dictator. I don't think that he is a dictator in the truest sense of the term, but he definitely does roll over people, and you know, he's running so fast and using a lot of strategies that are potentially kind of slimy or intimidating, in some ways unnecessarily, but that's up for debate and opinion, and you may have a different opinion. So I wouldn't say that he's a true dictator. He obviously loves our country, and I think that that's very clear. The real question is, what does Make America Great really mean? And that is always a question that we're going to ask, right? Based on the definition, what is a great America to Trump? And for him, it is often our country being the wealthiest and most powerful country, and at the expense of other countries, at the expense of, pulling aid and freezing things and saying, no, we're not going to give this. And that's a very strategic, intentional method. He's not just saying, oh, we're pulling the things that we don't agree with in our own administration. We're pulling everything, and then we're going to decide what we're going to keep. And I think that that's a very strategic move, because it doesn't just impact our country, it impacts the rest of the world and a lot of foreign aid that the United States gives out to other countries. Now, we're going to get into this funding freeze and a lot of the pushback that has been going on, and we're going to look at the courts who've been pushing back and saying, hey, Trump, you can't go forward with this freeze. You have to reinstate these payments. You have to reinstate this foreign aid. You have to reinstate the particular money that's going to different organizations within the country. You can't just freeze all of this money and expect that we're not going to notice. And the real big question that has been coming up from different people in the Trump administration and just those of us who are passionate and interested in politics is, who has the power here, right? Obviously, Trump has executive power, and he's taken these actions through executive power. But the judicial system obviously has the responsibility to uphold the Constitution. And so if they see something that is unconstitutional, then they can stop it, and then the administration can appeal, and then you work your way up to, of course, the Supreme Court. Now, the issue that's been happening in the last several days is that the courts are saying, hey, we have proof that Trump did indeed freeze and pause these funds, and that these organizations have not received money from the government as they should have on schedule. And therefore, he defied the acts of these laws. And so now the media is losing their mind because they're like, oh my goodness, we're in a constitutional crisis. Trump's being a dictator. It's over. We have to fight. We have to stand back and just let it out. All the things. And so whether Trump did or not is not what we're going to talk about. More so what we're going to talk about is this model of the government and who has different powers and what we've seen up until now. And it's definitely, Trump is not the first to have, pushed against the judicial powers in context to his executive power. In other words, saying, hey, I have the power to do this. I have the power to take this action out of my executive power. You don't have the power to stop or inhibit what's happening. Obama has done this. He said very, very similar things to Trump. I'm sure he would not want to associate himself with Trump's agenda, but Obama has used very similar language. Biden has done very similar things with his executive power. And so the real question here is, and the real controversy here is, because Trump has already been seen in the eyes of, kind of this rebel, this person that nobody can touch. Obviously, we all have our eyes on the legality of what he's doing and if it stands in court, quite literally, and what this actually means constitutionally. So I did a lot of research, and I looked at some of the original actions and the original things that took place. And one of the things that was interesting that Vance said on February 9th, he posted a very, very, very controversial X comment. A lot of people were like, what in the world? Vance is a part of this, rebellion and dictatorship. And he's just anyway, people were really mad. But anyway, he said, if a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. So I get what he's saying. And the real question that ultimately we're not going to know until we get to the Supreme Court is, what are the potential limitations of executive power? And the real question here is there a legal basis for a judge stopping this funding freeze constitutionally, because that's one of two reasons that they can stop or hit pause on executive power. They have to find some type of constitutional, illegitimacy in doing this. So then we get down to the real questions, right? What does the executive power of the president really mean? And what does he have executive power over? And what are the limitations? Can the judicial branch oppose or stop or halt particular executive power? Do they have the right to do that constitutionally? And because the Congress has power over the purse, they fund the government and they allocate particular funds and how much for different activities within the government, foreign aid, among other things. Can the administration adjust from there? Can they pull particular funds from things that Congress has allocated? Can they make changes? Can they adjust? And this will all go to the Supreme Court, as it should. It will be appealed and sent all the way to the top. And I think it should, because this has come up in Obama's administration. I'm sure before that. This has come up in Obama's administration, Biden's administration, and now it's coming up in Trump's. And it's going to keep coming up with every transition from Republican to Democratic president, because at the end of the day, big transitions in agenda are being made. And so, you're going to need to make decisions about the administrative elements of the government. And the big thing that's really been kind of interesting and making us all think is this idea that we're basically running the government like it has four branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judiciary branch, and the administrative branch. Because if the president doesn't have power over the administrative tasks of being a president and running the government, then who does? Really what we're running right now is that everybody kind of has their hands in the pot, but no one actually has executive power over the administrative tasks. Some people would argue that Congress has executive power over the administrative tasks because they fund it. They get to allocate and decide what goes where. So that's going to be a big thing that comes up in Supreme Court hearings, and I'm so excited. It's such an exciting time to be alive. It'll be interesting to see how this all gets resolved and what ends up happening.